So here's another new feature of CS5 that just boggles the mind. How many sleepless nights the engineers probably went without or had without sleep trying to come up with this. So this is called the mixer brush, and this is sort of an advancement onto those fancy new bristle-controlled brushes that I demonstrated in the other video. But here under your brush tool, you have a new feature that's called the mixer brush. And the mixer brush allows you to pick a brush. I'm just going to run through these. Allows you to pick a brush, like one of our fancy new bristle brushes, right? Pretty much designed for this. You can then go through and load brush or clean brush or load solid colors only. Over here, you've got an option that says load the brush after each stroke and clean the brush after each stroke. And by this point, you're probably thinking, what is he talking about? This brush has features like dry light load, moist, wet, very wet, wet with a heavy mix, wet percentage controls, load percentage controls, mix percentage controls, flow, and then our typical sort of tablet airbrush, sample all layers, etc. What are we talking about? Okay, so let's pick a brush. So I have a brush right now. And if I was to take this brush and make it very, very big, you can see there's our fancy bristles. As I start dabbing here, you guys can see how it's sort of making some marks and blending. Now you notice it's sort of getting all brown here, and I am pulling from a little bit of the shoreline, which is brown, but I can use my eyedropper to sample the color of the area that I'm painting over, and then go back and grab that brush. Notice the swatch changed. I've got my mixer brush. And now I'm getting a little bit more of those blue grays, right? So the idea here is that you can basically create these painterly effects, naturally blended, kind of mimicking oils. And I think really the goal here is to be able to get more interesting, organic-looking illustrations out of Photoshop, like we've seen out of programs like Painter for a couple of years. But now, inside our favorite application. So yeah, pretty quickly there you're starting to see some effect to what's going on. If I choose another one of the brushes here, and maybe we try something like dry heavy load, and I'm going to zoom in so you guys can see this a little better. I'm going to use the scrubby zoom. If you don't like the scrubby zoom, by the way, you can turn that off. Underneath the zoom tool options, scrubby zoom is a checkbox. You can turn that off. So yeah, let me zoom in here, scale this brush back down. I'm just going to press my bracket key to do that. And you'll notice I'm getting my blue color. Don't want that. My eyedropper, sample the color that I'm painting with, get my brush back, and away I go. Now that's dry heavy load. And so that's pretty much putting solid color down. But what if we were to change moist light mix? Now look at this again on this next section. Do you see how well that blends? How nice that is? Right? That's pretty organic looking. And again, it's still dependent on these brushes. And we've got it here saying clean brush after every stroke. If we turn that off, then every time you click, it actually builds and blends as if the oil is still stuck on the brush. That's pretty real to world from my experience. So anyway, maybe check this out, play around with it, and have some fun. It seems to be a really cool feature, and I can see a lot of funky illustrations coming out of Photoshop for this. So yeah, play around and start making some oil paintings in Photoshop.